Welcome to the bold analysis. Mount Kenya was at the center of maiden William Ruto's presidential bid, and in the first step, he was in a position to propagate himself to the presidency. And Uhuru Kenyatta's track record for the Mount Kenya for the last 10 years that he was a president was sacrificed in William Ruto's altar of power, conveniently for the politics of transition. And as we mentioned, that the August 9 general election was very significant to Mount Kenya. And allow me quote Polycarp Igathi's statement at one time, where he was saying that August 9th was to test the values, the integrity, and the stand of Mount Kenya. It was more of Mount Kenya than even the rest of the country. I remember when Igathi was saying that in other places when Raila talks, people listen. When William Ruto speaks, the Rift will listen. When Kalonzo Musyoka speaks, the Kamba Nation listens. But when Uhuru Kenyatta speaks, the whole Gema Nation starts complaining and does not listen to him. Now, I am talking about this because this election was also significantly pointing a vacuum of transition in Mount Kenya. And that is what was created. All the other narratives that were brought up against President Uhuru Kenyatta, and one of them was that the president has done nothing to the community. That has started some time back in 2019 by Moses Kuria. But the genesis of that was not to push the head of state to do projects in central Kenya, but it was a well-orchestrated move to uproot him, or rather the Kenyatta Empire, as the kingpin of the region. Immediately after results were announced, there were some few members of parliament that came out and started saying that if you want to talk to Gema, you need to go through Rigathi Gachagua. I remember my good friend was telling me that some of this was okay. This was a well-laid script for this, and I can tell you for a fact that I am tempted to believe that William Ruto won the election on the plan that he held and the central Kenya matrix by bringing in Rigathi Gachagua, trying to create the bromance with the church. But again, I need to restrain myself because there are fairly half of the country that believes that it was a robbery. It was a victory that was snatched. Now, let me not go further. The churches were used to intoxicate the masses against the president. And even when Raila Odinga presented his candidature, the same church was used to demonize the person. Now, guys, what as now the dust has settled, Tuesday is swearing in, people are going to settle into the offices. William Ruto has successfully got the Senate Speaker from Western, the National from Coast, the National Assembly Speaker from Western, and the leader of majority is going to Central Kenya, while some of active politicians that did not make it, Moses Kuria's, William Kabogos, and the Justin Muturi are waiting somewhere in the fence for what exactly is in for them. And I can tell you that the real battle that William Ruto will face in his presidential reign will be the Mount Kenya transition battles. Challenge me about that. I want you to just go to the comment section and challenge me that that battle will not come now. If anything, his presidential candidature was captured, and I analyzed, it was captured by Mount Kenya transition. But let's just face it straight into this. How this is going to play out, and I want to explain to you how this is going to influence Ruto's reign. Does not need magical science. Guys, the resurgence of Uhuru's offense, who may have not have won the seats in the last general election simply because of Jubilee and Uhuru's baggage, is one of the ways, is one of the fronts where the transition battle will emerge. And I can tell you that the leaders who did not make to the parliament, the Kanini Kega, Jeremiah Kioni, Ngujiru Wambugu, and many of them, they have options of joining William Ruto or stay put, stay outside, look at what happens. They criticize the government of the day. But remember, there is something you wanted to look at. That the resurgence of Uhuru's orphans will come to enlighten. Remember, at their campaign, there was the Central Kenya consciousness. The Central Kenya consciousness in Kenya Kwanza, and the young politicians that coalesced around William Ruto, their line was, their catchy line was that Uhuru Kenyatta do not mean well for the country and for the region. But the other side, their consciousness line was that they were safe and the interest was covered in Raila Odinga. Now, this resurgence will manifest when they rise to ask the questions, whether they are in government, whether they join government or not, because there is a question of tuliwaambia. And to some extent, this transition battle may actually make William Ruto offer and give the best to Mount Kenya. And of course, I can tell you that in this first term, expect William Ruto to do the best to Mount Kenya. Only for one reason, so that they suppress any other candidate that can emerge in 2027 from Gema. You've made Speaker Moses Wetangula most likely want to serve for 10 years, so he's out of the 2027 race. Musalia Mudavadi is now joining cabinet. It's only Kalonzo Musyoka that is out, and is also rumored to be heading back there, heading to Kenya Kwanza. And so it will be important just to make sure that the voices of dissent from Mount Kenya are suppressed, and these voices will be registered by Uhuru's orphans. And these Uhuru orphans are also out to wreck the boat with one aim: succession. But even that might be going further. Within the camp, there is emerging Gachagwa's antagonists. There are people, the elements who do not buy the Gachagua concept. And what this will play out is, unlike at the campaign trail, where Rigathi Gachagua branded himself and customized his messaging to be a Mount Kenya champion, fate has really served him a fair share of character development. And now the character development is that because he's a deputy president, by default, by force, and by the constitution, he must put on the country's jacket and drop the Mount Kenya hood. So with that, the antagonist will use that opportunity to hit him as a man that abandoned the Mount Kenya cause. Not, and I can say not for him to look back. And I'm saying that the point should be focusing on Mount Kenya. But at this time, whether Rigathi Gachagua would want things to happen in Mount Kenya as they go, but there is mainstreaming because the whole country must target. And with the legislative numbers that are there and the Kenyan media that are going to ask questions, there will be need for mainstreaming. This antagonist, Gachagua's antagonist, will use that opportunity to trigger a transition battle. But Uhuru's backroom forces are still intact. And I listened to Uhuru saying the other day that he's going to hand over power smiling, but his hero, or rather his leader, is Raila Odinga. And simply, maybe he's still staying in denial, as William Ruto is saying. It could be also just his constitutional right to say about that. Remember, he was the chairman of Azimio la Umoja. But you will not, I can say that President Uhuru Kenyatta is not going to leave the shackles of presidency, the environment of presidency, immediately exits State House. There's still going to be people around. And with the little influence that he will have outside there, he can still wreck the boat from within. And as I said, if the intention was to make sure that Uhuru Kenyatta is not the kingpin, how about if he insists so? And I think, by all fairness, he should remain the man to watch. Not until, maybe until Rigathi Gachagua is sworn in. It depends on what William Ruto decides. But I know that William Ruto wants these young politicians because their ambitions cannot contradict his ambitions. Finally, there is this group. That if you talk to people, if you talk to people around gamer and you just do peer analysis, you'll understand the influence of the gamer Gitongas. Gitongas are the business community. I was so skeptical when Mount Kenya billionaires were coalescing around Raila Odinga. I had a stupid thought that there may be other people who also have commercial interests from the same place that might be supporting William Ruto. I have such a very wild thought that maybe Mount Kenya billionaires are wakona Raila, but there is another Gitonga team that is with William Ruto. And by that time, it was not possible. But I can tell you that, you see, they are landlords. They are people with commercial interest. I have a friend of mine, I should not mention a name, who was telling me that he owns acres of land in 2 counties. I should not even mention this too. 2 counties of Gema. And also in Nairobi here, there is quite a lot, even though some of them are having court cases. And these are the people who had those interests. If you go to River Road, the people who do business there, wale wenye wana import, wanauza hizi vitu. And there was a story, I think it came at Uhuru Kenyatta's reign, where there's some contraband goods that were banned, and they seemed to complain that there was a lot of harassment that was meted on them and the government was banning their stuff. I think that story is normally somewhere there. That Gitonga group is another group that went against the president. And if you think I'm making this as an assertion, just make a very good experiment. Enda kununua ata SIM card, or just easy. Let's just want to buy a torch. Just go along River Road, get a place you can sit and bond with 1 or 2 people who are selling there, and just find out if you guys can have a small chat on politics. You will hear the kind of bile they are throwing against President Uhuru Kenyatta. This same group because the government works as a system. They may not, and their plight might not even be looked into now, because honestly, at some point, maybe what government was doing was genuine. This group that with deep commercial interest, this is the group that Rigathi Gachagua will go to rally and tell the Mount Kenya voters that president is building the railway because it is his land that is going to help him. I remember someone saying that sijui ametengeneza hii barabara sababu inatoa maziwa kutoka, those are just interests. This community of this group of Gitongas are going to make the transition politics not be that easy. And so the fact that Rigathi Gachagua is a running mate or is a deputy president, I don't think will give him the direct nod to the running mate. This is one of the battles that I see William Ruto must then up his stakes to handle. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my bold analysis. I want to give special shout out to Kamau Wadiara. Yes. Yeah, we really had some very informal analysis on this and it came out clearly. Thank you guys, and let's meet in the next.